Laura Ackerson, a young woman with dreams, a mother fighting for her children. She had ambition, she had drive. She had a bright future ahead of her, but her life was cut short, stolen in a brutal act of violence. Laura vanished in the summer of 2011. Days turned into weeks, hope fading with each passing hour. The search for Laura would uncover a sinister plot, a web of deceit spun by those closest to her. This is the story of a mother's love, a killer's obsession, and a fight for justice that would shock the nation. At the heart of this story is a bitter custody battle, a fight for two young boys caught in the crossfire of their parents' hatred. Laura Ackerson loved her sons more than anything. She fought tirelessly for them, determined to protect them from the toxic relationship that had consumed their lives. But her ex-partner, Grant Hayes, had other plans. Grant was a man consumed by control, driven by a desire to possess and dominate. He couldn't stand the thought of Laura having any power over him, any say in the lives of their children. His love had twisted into something dark and dangerous, a simmering rage that threatened to boil over. As the custody battle raged on, Grant's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He manipulated his children, turning them against their mother. He spread lies and rumors, attempting to destroy Laura's reputation, and as his obsession grew, so too did his willingness to silence her forever. This is a story about the lengths to which one man would go to get what he wanted, to satisfy his need for control. It's a story about the devastating consequences of jealousy, possession, and the deadly allure of power. The search for Laura Ackerson would span 2 states, uncovering a trail of lies, deceit, and unimaginable cruelty. Her disappearance would send shockwaves through her community, leaving a void that could never be filled. But from the ashes of tragedy, a promise was made. A promise to find Laura, to bring her killers to justice, and to honor her memory by fighting for the children she left behind. This is a story about the tireless efforts of law enforcement, the unwavering dedication of those who refuse to let Laura be forgotten. It's a story about the pursuit of truth, the fight against evil, and the unwavering belief that even in the darkest of times, justice will prevail. Stay with us as we unravel the chilling case of Laura Ackerson, a story that will leave you breathless, heartbroken, and ultimately inspired by the resilience of the human spirit. Laura Ackerson's story begins in the heart of North Carolina, in the quaint town of Kinston. Picture a place where everybody knows your name, where life moves at a slower pace, where dreams are born under wide southern skies. This is where Laura spent her formative years, a place that would forever hold a special place in her heart. Growing up, Laura was known for her infectious smile and her kind heart. She had a way of making everyone around her feel special, like they were the only person in the room. She was a ray of sunshine, even on the cloudiest of days. Her laughter was contagious, her spirit unbreakable. She possessed an inner strength that drew people to her, a quiet determination that would later define her life. But Laura's ambitions stretched far beyond the borders of her small town. She yearned for something more, a life filled with excitement, opportunity, and the chance to make her mark on the world. She dreamt of skyscrapers and bustling city streets, of a future where anything was possible. So, with the same determination that had always guided her, Laura set her sights on a new horizon, leaving behind the comfort of her childhood home to chase her dreams in the big city. The transition wasn't always easy. The city could be a cold and unforgiving place, a stark contrast to the warmth and familiarity of her hometown. But Laura faced each challenge with her signature grace and resilience, her spirit never dampened by the obstacles in her path. She knew that success wouldn't come easy, that she would have to fight for every inch. And fight she did, her heart set on building a better life for herself and her children. Despite her ambition, Laura never lost sight of what truly mattered: family, friends, and the simple joys of life. She had a way of finding beauty in the everyday, of appreciating the small moments that made life worth living. She was a loyal friend, a confidant, a shoulder to cry on. She was the kind of person who would drop everything to help someone in need, her generosity knowing no bounds. Laura had a way of connecting with people on a deeper level. She was a great listener, offering a sympathetic ear and words of encouragement when they were needed most. She had a gift for seeing the best in others, even when they couldn't see it in themselves. Her compassion knew no bounds, her empathy extending to all living creatures. She was a true animal lover, her heart breaking for any creature suffering or in need. Her love for her family was fierce and unwavering. She cherished the time spent with her parents and siblings, drawing strength and comfort from their unwavering support. She had a special bond with her grandmother, their relationship one of shared secrets and unconditional love. These were the people who knew her best, who loved her without reservation, who would stand by her side no matter what life threw her way. And then, there were her sons. Her boys were her world, the center of her universe. Everything she did, every dream she chased, every obstacle she overcame was for them. She wanted to give them the world, to provide them with every opportunity she never had. Her love for them was boundless, a love that would ultimately lead her down a path of unimaginable darkness. It was in the city, amidst the hustle and bustle of her new life, that Laura met Grant Hayes. He was a musician, a charmer, a man who seemed to possess an undeniable magnetism. Laura, drawn to his creativity and his passion for life, fell hard and fast. Their relationship was intense, a whirlwind romance that quickly consumed them both. They built a life together, their love story playing out against the backdrop of late-night gigs, shared dreams, and the promise of a future intertwined. The arrival of their first son brought them unimaginable joy, their hearts overflowing with a love they had never known. Their family grew, their bond seemingly unbreakable, but beneath the surface cracks began to appear. The pressures of life, the weight of responsibility, and the constant struggle to make ends meet took their toll. The fairy tale began to crumble, the once vibrant colors of their love fading into shades of resentment and anger. Arguments became more frequent, their words laced with venom. The man who had once swept Laura off her feet had become someone she no longer recognized. The love they had shared, once a beacon of hope, had morphed into something toxic, something dangerous. The birth of their second son did little to mend the fractured foundation of their relationship. Instead, it seemed to exacerbate the existing tensions, pushing them further apart. The realization that their love was beyond repair, that their future together was nothing more than a shattered illusion, was a bitter pill to swallow. The decision to separate was agonizing, a heart-wrenching choice made with the hope of salvaging some semblance of peace for their children. The separation was messy, a tangled web of hurt feelings, accusations, and a deep-seated resentment that lingered long after the ink on the divorce papers had dried. But amidst the chaos, one thing remained constant: Laura's unwavering love for her sons. She would move mountains to protect them, to shield them from the pain and turmoil that had come to define their young lives. The custody battle was brutal, a relentless back and forth that drained Laura emotionally and financially. Grant, determined to exert his control, fought her every step of the way. He seemed intent on making her life a living hell, using their children as pawns in his twisted game. He spread lies about her character, questioning her fitness as a mother, attempting to poison their minds against her. But Laura refused to be bullied. She fought back with every ounce of strength she possessed, determined to secure the future her sons deserved. She knew that Grant's behavior was driven by spite, by a desire to punish her for daring to break free from his grasp. She wouldn't let him win, she wouldn't let him break her spirit. Laura's determination to protect her children, to create a safe and loving environment for them, fueled her fight. She knew that the odds were stacked against her, that Grant would stop at nothing to get his way. But she wouldn't back down. She wouldn't let fear dictate her actions. She would fight for her sons until her dying breath. Little did she know that her unwavering love, her fierce determination, would ultimately lead her into the heart of a nightmare. Grant Ruffin Hayes III, a man of contradictions. On the surface, he was a charmer, a talented musician with a quick wit and an easy smile. He could captivate a room with his music, his fingers dancing across the keys, his voice drawing you in with its raw emotion. He had a way of making you feel like you were the only person who mattered, his attention undivided, his gaze intense. He was the life of the party, the center of attention, the one everyone wanted to be near. Born and raised in a middle-class family, Grant had always been drawn to music. It was his escape, his passion, his way of expressing the emotions that simmered beneath the surface. He poured his heart and soul into his music, his lyrics often reflecting a depth and vulnerability that belied his outward persona. He dreamed of making it big, of sharing his music with the world, of leaving his mark on the industry. And he had the talent to do it. His voice was his instrument, his words painting vivid pictures in the minds of his listeners. But there was another side to Grant, a darkness that lurked beneath the surface, hidden from all but those closest to him. A possessiveness, a need for control, a simmering rage that could erupt without warning. He could be charming one minute, cold and calculating the next. His moods shifted like the wind, leaving those around him walking on eggshells, never knowing which version of Grant they would encounter. His talent was undeniable, his charisma magnetic, but those who knew him best saw glimpses of something darker, a possessiveness that hinted at a dangerous undercurrent beneath his charming facade. This duality, this push and pull between light and shadow, would define Grant's life, ultimately leading him down a path of destruction and despair. Grant and Laura's paths crossed in a smoky bar, the air thick with anticipation and the promise of a good time. He, the charismatic musician pouring his heart out on stage. She, the beautiful dreamer drawn to his magnetic energy. Their connection was instant, electric, a spark that quickly ignited into a passionate affair. Their relationship was a whirlwind from the start, fueled by intense emotions and a shared thirst for life. They were inseparable, two souls drawn together by an invisible force. Laura was captivated by Grant's passion, his creativity, the way he made her feel like she was the only woman in the world. Grant, in turn, was drawn to Laura's beauty, her intelligence, her unwavering belief in him and his dreams. The arrival of their first son cemented their bond, their love finding a new focal point in the tiny human they had created together. They were a family now, their future intertwined, their dreams woven together. But as time went on, the cracks in their idyllic facade began to show. The pressures of parenthood, the financial strain of supporting a family, the constant struggle to balance their individual aspirations with the demands of their growing family took their toll. The love that had once burned so brightly began to dim, replaced by resentment, anger, and a growing sense of disillusionment. Arguments became more frequent, their words like daggers, each cutting remark leaving invisible scars. Grant, accustomed to getting his own way, bristled at Laura's attempts to assert her independence. His need for control, always present beneath the surface, began to rear its ugly head, casting a dark shadow over their once loving relationship. The demise of Grant and Laura's relationship was as swift as it was messy. The love they shared curdled into bitterness, accusations flew like poison darts, and the once unbreakable bond they shared shattered into a million pieces. The arrival of their second son did little to salvage their failing relationship. Instead, it seemed to amplify the existing tensions, pushing them further apart. It wasn't long before Grant met Amanda, a woman who seemed to possess all the qualities Laura lacked. She was pliable, agreeable, content to exist in his shadow. Amanda was enamored with the talented musician, blinded by his charm and the allure of a life less ordinary. She saw only the good in him, the charismatic performer, the devoted father, the man he chose to show her. Their courtship was a stark contrast to the tumultuous years Grant had spent with Laura. Where Laura had challenged him, Amanda offered unwavering adoration. Where Laura had yearned for independence, Amanda seemed content to revolve her world around him. Grant reveled in this newfound power, this unquestioning devotion. He had found a woman who wouldn't challenge his authority, who wouldn't question his motives, who would always put his needs before her own. Their whirlwind romance culminated in a hasty marriage, a celebration of their love that seemed to erase any lingering memories of Grant's past. Amanda embraced her role as stepmother to Grant's sons, showering them with affection and striving to create a stable and loving home for their newly blended family. But beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic life, a darkness lurked. The ghost of Grant's past, the memory of his tumultuous relationship with Laura, refused to be silenced. While Grant attempted to build a new life with Amanda, his relationship with Laura continued to deteriorate. The custody battle over their two sons became a battlefield. every exchange a reminder of their failed love and the bitterness that lingered between them. Grant, accustomed to getting his own way, bristled at Laura's attempts to assert her rights as a mother. He accused her of being unfit, of trying to turn their sons against him, of using the children as leverage to hurt him. He painted himself as the victim, the devoted father fighting for the right to be a part of his sons' lives. But beneath the facade of righteous indignation, a seed of obsession began to germinate within him. Grant couldn't stand the thought of Laura having any control over him, any power over their children. He resented her for moving on, for daring to build a new life without him. He saw her as a threat, an obstacle to the perfect life he was trying to create with Amanda. He became fixated on her, monitoring her every move, fueled by a toxic cocktail of jealousy, possessiveness, and a desire to exert his dominance. Every interaction with Laura, every phone call, every custody exchange served to fuel the fire of his obsession. His anger grew, festering within him like a poison, slowly consuming his thoughts and twisting his perception of reality. He began to see her as the enemy, the person standing in the way of his happiness, the one who needed to be silenced. And as the custody battle raged on, so too did the darkness within him, threatening to spill over and consume everything in its path. The courtroom became a battleground, the sterile environment a stark contrast to the raw emotions that played out within its walls. Laura and Grant, once united by love, now faced each other across a divide of resentment and animosity. The air crackled with tension, every word, every glance, a weapon wielded in a war that threatened to consume them both. At the heart of the battle were their two young sons, innocent pawns in a game of control and manipulation. Laura, her heart aching for her children, fought tooth and nail for every precious moment with them. She yearned to shield them from the bitterness that had poisoned their family, to create a safe haven where their laughter could drown out the echoes of their parents' animosity. But Grant, his ego bruised, his pride wounded, saw the custody battle as an opportunity to exert his dominance. He craved control, the power to dictate the terms of their separation, to punish Laura for daring to break free from his grasp. He viewed their sons not as precious gifts to be cherished, but as weapons to be wielded against the woman who had dared to defy him. The legal proceedings dragged on, each hearing a grueling test of Laura's resilience. Grant, a master manipulator, used the courtroom as his stage, spinning tales of Laura's supposed instability, painting himself as the victim, the wronged father fighting for his right to be a part of his children's lives. His words dripped with false sincerity, his performance carefully crafted to sway the judge and undermine Laura's credibility. The courtroom walls seemed to amplify Grant's every word, his accusations echoing in the sterile silence. He accused Laura of being an unfit mother, painting a picture of a woman teetering on the edge, her judgment clouded by instability. He claimed she was turning their sons against him, poisoning their young minds with lies and fabrications. He spun tales of Laura's supposed neglect, exaggerating minor incidents, twisting the truth to fit his narrative. He spoke of missed phone calls, forgotten permission slips, and exaggerated emotional outbursts, painting a picture of a woman incapable of providing a stable and loving home for their children. Laura, her heart breaking with each accusation, fought back with the ferocity of a mother protecting her cubs. She presented evidence of her unwavering devotion, her tireless efforts to provide a loving and nurturing environment for her sons. She spoke of bedtime stories, shared laughter, and the unbreakable bond she shared with her children. But her words seemed to fall on deaf ears. Grant's carefully constructed facade of fatherly concern was convincing, his performance tugging at the heartstrings of those who didn't know the real him, the man who lurked beneath the mask of respectability. With every passing hearing, the emotional toll on Laura became more apparent. The stress etched lines on her face, her once vibrant eyes dulled by worry. The legal battle, once a fight for her children's future, had become a draining and demoralizing ordeal, chipping away at her spirit, her hope dwindling with each passing day. As the custody battle raged on, Grant's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He seemed to revel in Laura's distress, his actions fueled by a perverse satisfaction that sent chills down her spine. His phone calls became more frequent, his tone shifting between veiled threats and desperate pleas for reconciliation. He bombarded her with text messages, his words a mix of endearments and accusations, love bombing one minute, spewing venom the next. He seemed intent on keeping her off balance, on chipping away at her resolve, on reminding her that he was always watching, always in control. Laura lived in a constant state of anxiety, her every move scrutinized, her every decision analyzed for any sign of weakness that Grant could exploit. She feared for her safety, for her children's well-being, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios, her sleep plagued by nightmares of Grant's revenge. She confided her fears to friends and family, their concern growing with each passing day. They urged her to seek a restraining order, to document Grant's escalating behavior, to build a case that would protect her from his increasingly unhinged actions. But Laura hesitated, torn between the desire to protect herself and the fear of further alienating Grant, of jeopardizing her already tenuous custody agreement. The weight of her situation pressed down on her, threatening to crush her spirit. She felt trapped, caught in a web of her own making, her every attempt to break free only tightening the strands that bound her to Grant's toxic influence. In a moment of unexpected reprieve, a fragile truce was called. The court, recognizing the escalating tensions and the potential harm to the children, ordered a temporary custody arrangement, granting Laura more time with her sons while urging both parties to seek counseling and work towards a more amicable co-parenting relationship. For Laura, it was a much-needed victory, a chance to breathe, to reconnect with her children without the constant fear of Grant's interference. She cherished every moment with her sons, their laughter music to her ears, their hugs a balm to her wounded soul. She threw herself into creating a loving and stable home for them. Her days filled with bedtime stories, playground adventures, and the simple joys of motherhood. The fear that had haunted her for months seemed to recede, replaced by a cautious optimism, a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to coexist peacefully for the sake of their children. But the peace was short-lived, a fragile illusion shattered by the storm that was brewing on the horizon. Unbeknownst to Laura, Grant's obsession had only intensified during their forced separation. He seethed with resentment, his anger festering, his mind consumed by thoughts of revenge. The temporary custody arrangement, far from fostering cooperation, had only fueled his desire for control, pushing him closer to the edge of a precipice from which there would be no return. July 13, 2011, dawned like any other summer day in Raleigh, North Carolina. The air hung heavy with humidity, the sun a blazing orb in the cloudless sky. But for Laura Ackerson, it was a day filled with anticipation, a day that held the promise of precious hours spent with her beloved sons. The custody agreement, hard-won after months of legal wrangling, stipulated that Laura was to pick up her boys from Grant's apartment that afternoon. She had meticulously planned their day, her heart brimming with the simple joys she envisioned, a picnic lunch in the park, a visit to the zoo, their laughter echoing through the summer air. As she dressed that morning, a familiar knot of anxiety tightened in her chest. Despite the court-ordered arrangement, a part of her couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Grant's behavior in recent weeks had been increasingly erratic, his phone calls a confusing mix of apologies and veiled threats, his moods shifting with the unpredictability of a summer storm. But Laura pushed these unsettling thoughts aside, clinging to the hope that Grant for once would honor their agreement, that he would put aside his bitterness for the sake of their children. Her sons were her world, and she would face any obstacle, endure any hardship, to be with them. The afternoon wore on, the minutes ticking by with agonizing slowness as Laura eagerly awaited the designated pickup time. She had packed their favorite snacks, chosen their most beloved storybooks, her every thought consumed with the anticipation of their reunion. But as the hour of their meeting approached, a cold dread began to creep into Laura's heart. Grant wasn't answering her calls, his phone going straight to voicemail. Her text messages remained unanswered, the silence amplifying her growing unease. She tried to rationalize his unresponsiveness, telling herself that perhaps he was busy, that he had simply forgotten to charge his phone. But deep down, a chilling premonition took root, whispering that something was terribly wrong. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the city, Laura's concern morphed into full-blown panic. She had never known Grant to be so unreliable when it came to their children. He may have been many things, bitter, resentful, controlling, but he had always been punctual when it came to their custody exchanges. She paced her apartment, her mind racing, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Where was he? Where were her boys? A terrifying thought pierced her mounting terror. What if something had happened to them? As darkness fell, casting a pall over the city, Laura's frantic calls to Grant's apartment went unanswered. She reached out to his family and friends, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and desperation, but no one had seen or heard from him or the boys. Whispers of concern rippled through Laura's circle of friends and family. They knew of the bitter custody battle, of Grant's erratic behavior, of the undercurrent of fear that had plagued Laura for months. A collective sense of dread settled over them, a shared premonition that something was terribly wrong. Laura, her usual strength and determination crumbling under the weight of her terror, reached out to the authorities. She reported her sons missing, her voice cracking as she relayed her concerns, her gut feeling that something sinister was afoot. The police, initially hesitant to intervene in what appeared to be a simple case of a father failing to return his children on time, listened patiently as Laura recounted the tumultuous history with Grant, the escalating tensions, the veiled threats he had made. She spoke of her fear, her intuition screaming that something was terribly wrong. The disappearance of Laura Ackerson and her two young sons sent shockwaves through the community. The story, a parent's worst nightmare, gripped the city, dominating headlines and sparking a wave of concern and speculation. Neighbors gathered in hushed groups, their faces etched with worry as they shared what little information they had. Candlelight vigils were held, prayers whispered for the safe return of the missing family. The police, now taking Laura's concerns seriously, launched a full-scale investigation. They combed through Grant's apartment searching for any clues that might lead them to the missing mother and her sons. They interviewed neighbors, friends, and family members, piecing together a timeline of the days leading up to their disappearance, hoping to uncover any shred of information that might lead them to Laura and her boys. Forensics teams dusted for fingerprints, analyzed phone records, and scoured social media accounts, searching for any digital footprints that might shed light on their whereabouts. The investigation extended beyond state lines, authorities casting a wide net, their efforts fueled by the desperate hope that they might still find Laura and her sons alive. As days turned into sleepless nights, the weight of the unknown pressed down on Laura's loved ones. Hope, once a beacon in the darkness, began to flicker and fade, replaced by a growing sense of dread, a chilling realization that the truth, when it finally emerged, might be far more sinister than they could have ever imagined. Amidst the growing despair, a glimmer of hope emerged. Laura's car, a silver minivan, was discovered abandoned in a grocery store parking lot just a few miles from Grant's apartment. The discovery sent a surge of adrenaline through the investigation, investigators clinging to the possibility that it might hold the key to unraveling the mystery of their disappearance. Forensics teams descended upon the vehicle, their every move scrutinized by a throng of media and onlookers. They dusted for fingerprints, searching for any trace of Laura, her sons, or anyone else who might have been in the vehicle. They meticulously combed through the interior, hoping to find a clue, a sign, anything that might point them in the right direction. But as the initial excitement subsided, a shadow of doubt was cast over the discovery. The car, while offering a tantalizing lead, also raised more questions than it answered. Why was it abandoned in such a public place? Where were the car seats, the toys, the telltale signs of a mother traveling with young children? And most importantly, where were Laura and her sons? The discovery of the minivan, while providing a much-needed boost to the investigation, also served as a stark reminder of the baffling circumstances surrounding their disappearance. The pieces of the puzzle, while slowly beginning to emerge, refused to fit together, leaving investigators grappling with more questions than answers. The search for Laura Ackerson and her two young sons continued, the mystery deepening with each passing day. Days turned into weeks, each sunrise a painful reminder of Laura and her son's absence. The leads, once promising, had dwindled to whispers and rumors, dead ends that only deepened the mystery. The police, frustrated by the lack of progress, doubled down on their efforts, their determination fueled by a growing sense of unease. Something wasn't right. They could feel it in their gut, a gnawing suspicion that something sinister had befallen Laura and her boys. And then a whisper, a rumor from a source deemed unreliable, reached their ears. A connection to Texas. The details were sketchy, but it was the first tangible lead they had encountered in weeks. The phone records told a story, a trail of digital breadcrumbs leading from Raleigh to Texas. Calls made in the dead of night, their duration brief but their frequency telling. Text messages, cryptic but their timestamps aligning with a chillingly precise timeline. And then, the rental agreement. A U-Haul truck rented in Grant's name, its mileage log a damning indictment of a journey undertaken under a shroud of secrecy. The detectives, their suspicions now solidifying into grim certainty, shifted their focus to Texas, specifically to Richmond, a quiet community outside Houston. A team of detectives was dispatched to Texas, their mission twofold: to establish a timeline of Grant and Amanda's movements and to investigate Amanda's sister's property. The pieces of the puzzle, once scattered, were beginning to fall into place, forming a picture far more sinister than they could have ever imagined. The humid Texas air hung heavy with the scent of jasmine and decay as detectives descended upon the property on the outskirts of Richmond. The house, a modest ranch-style dwelling, stood silent, its windows dark, but the detectives weren't interested in the house. Their attention was drawn to the sprawling bayou that bordered the property. Armed with a search warrant and a growing sense of dread, the detectives, aided by forensic specialists and cadaver dogs, began their grim task. And then, a discovery. Floating amidst the reeds and debris, its once bright colors faded by the relentless sun, was a cooler, its lid slightly ajar. The stench, overpowering, unmistakable, hit them like a physical blow. The medical examiner's report, when it finally arrived, was as gruesome as it was heartbreaking. The cooler contained the dismembered remains of a human being. The body, its decomposition accelerated by the Texas heat, had been savagely dismembered, its various parts carefully wrapped in plastic bags. The task of identifying the remains fell to a team of forensic anthropologists. Dental records, those unique identifiers, were requested from Laura's family. The wait for the results was excruciating. And then, confirmation. The remains found in that cooler belonged to Laura Ackerson. The discovery of Laura's remains, while confirming her tragic fate, only deepened the mystery surrounding the disappearance of her two young sons. The investigation, now a homicide inquiry, shifted into high gear. The focus of the investigation remained firmly on Grant and Amanda. Surveillance footage placed their vehicle at key locations, their movements aligning with the chilling timeline. A search warrant executed at Amanda's sister's home uncovered a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. The gruesome truth pieced together from forensic evidence, witness testimony, and a trail of digital breadcrumbs began to unfold. Grant and Amanda were arrested and charged with Laura's murder, but the mystery of the missing boys remained. The investigation revealed a chilling truth. Laura Ackerson's murder was a calculated and cold-blooded act. Driven by a toxic cocktail of obsession, jealousy, and a chilling thirst for control, Grant Hayes, aided by Amanda, had spun a web of deceit. The custody battle provided the perfect cover. Grant, feigning a desire for reconciliation, contacted Laura, proposing a meeting to discuss a revised custody arrangement. He played the role of the contrite ex-husband to perfection. Laura, desperate for a truce, wanted to believe him. The date was set, the time agreed upon. She had no way of knowing that she was walking into a carefully orchestrated trap. On that fateful July afternoon, Laura arrived at Grant's apartment, her guard lowered. She had no way of knowing that the man she had once loved had transformed into the architect of her demise. Inside the apartment, a chill hung in the air. Grant, his demeanor a stark contrast to his conciliatory tone on the phone, greeted her with a coldness that sent a jolt of fear through her. The conversation quickly devolved into a heated argument. Grant, his carefully constructed facade crumbling, unleashed a torrent of verbal abuse. Laura, her initial hope evaporating, attempted to defuse the situation, but her words fell on deaf ears. The details of what transpired next, pieced together from forensic evidence and Amanda's chilling confession, paint a picture of unimaginable horror. Laura, caught completely off guard, fought for her life. The apartment became a tomb, its walls echoing with Laura's muffled screams. Amanda, initially a passive observer, joined in the gruesome act. With Laura's body concealed in a large duffel bag, Grant and Amanda loaded their macabre cargo into the back of their vehicle. They had crossed a line, their souls forever stained with the blood of the woman they had once claimed to love. The drive from North Carolina to Texas was a blur, a 20-hour journey of horror and denial. The silence in the car was deafening, broken only by the occasional whispered reassurance. The Texas sun beat down on the couple as they pulled up to Amanda's sister's house. Amanda's sister, oblivious to the true nature of their visit, welcomed them with open arms. Under the cover of darkness, Grant and Amanda disposed of Laura's body in the nearby bayou. They worked quickly, efficiently, their actions betraying a chilling lack of remorse. The following days were a blur of feigned normalcy. They fielded questions from the police, their answers carefully rehearsed, but their charade could not erase the truth. And as the walls closed in, Grant and Amanda found themselves facing the consequences of their actions. Section 1. The State versus Grant Hayes. The trial of Grant Hayes for the murder of Laura Ackerson was set against a backdrop of media frenzy and public outrage. The courtroom, usually a stage for dry legal arguments, was transformed into a crucible of raw emotion. The air thick with anticipation, grief, and a thirst for justice that was palpable. The eyes of the nation were upon them, the case a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. Grant, his once charming demeanor replaced by a mask of cold detachment, sat beside his attorney, his fate hanging in the balance as the prosecution meticulously laid out their case, their words painting a damning portrait of a man consumed by obsession, driven to murder by a toxic mix of jealousy and a chilling need for control. The evidence, painstakingly gathered over months of investigation, was presented piece by piece, each item a brick in the wall of proof being erected against him. Phone records, text messages, surveillance footage, all pointed to a carefully planned and ruthlessly executed murder, a chilling testament to the depths of Grant's depravity. The prosecution, their voices echoing through the silent courtroom, wove a narrative of deceit, manipulation, and cold-blooded murder. They presented Grant as the mastermind behind Laura's demise, a man who saw his ex-wife not as the mother of his children, but as an obstacle to be removed, a threat to his carefully constructed life that needed to be silenced permanently. Section 2. A chilling testimony. The testimony of Amanda Hayes, Grant's wife and accomplice, sent shockwaves through the courtroom, her words painting a gruesome picture of Laura's final moments, her voice a chilling mix of detachment and remorse as she recounted the events that led to the brutal murder. Her words, delivered with a chilling matter-of-factness, sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned courtroom observers. She described how Grant, consumed by a jealous rage, had lured Laura to his apartment, how he had savagely attacked her, his hands crushing her throat as she struggled for her last breath. She spoke of her own role in the gruesome act, how she had helped Grant subdue Laura, how she had watched, her heart pounding in her chest as the life drained from the eyes of the woman she had once considered a rival. Her testimony, while damning for Grant, was also a desperate plea for her own soul, an attempt to distance herself from the brutality of the crime by portraying herself as a victim of her husband's manipulation, a pawn in his twisted game. She spoke of Grant's controlling behavior, his volatile temper, his threats of violence that kept her trapped in a cycle of fear and obedience. But the jury, their faces etched with a mix of horror and skepticism, listened intently, weighing her words against the overwhelming evidence of her complicity in the crime. They had seen the surveillance footage, the receipts for the saw and the heavy-duty garbage bags, the traces of Laura's blood found in her home. Amanda's attempt to paint herself as an unwilling participant, a victim of circumstance, rang hollow in the face of the gruesome truth. Section 3. The verdict: guilty. After weeks of testimony, the prosecution and defense presented their closing arguments, their words echoing in the hushed silence of the courtroom. The prosecution, their voices heavy with the weight of the evidence, implored the jury to hold Grant Hayes accountable for his actions, to deliver a verdict that reflected the brutal and calculated nature of his crime. They reminded the jury of Laura's love for her sons, her desperate struggle for life, her voice silenced forever by a man consumed by his own darkness. The defense, their task daunting in the face of overwhelming evidence, argued for leniency, attempting to paint Grant as a man driven to desperation by a bitter custody battle, his actions a tragic consequence of a love gone wrong. They appealed to the jury's humanity, urging them to see beyond the horrific details of the crime and recognize the flawed but ultimately human heart that beat within the chest of the man they were tasked with judging. The jury, their faces drawn, their minds heavy with the weight of the decision, filed out of the courtroom to deliberate Grant Hayes' fate. The hours stretched into days as they painstakingly reviewed the evidence, dissected the testimony, and grappled with the moral complexities of the case. The world outside waited with bated breath, the fate of Grant Hayes hanging in the balance. And then, the verdict: guilty. Guilty of first-degree murder. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom, the sound a mixture of relief, vindication, and a profound sadness for the life cut short, the potential forever unrealized. Grant Hayes, his face a mask of stoicism, his eyes betraying a flicker of fear as the weight of the verdict settled upon him, was led away in handcuffs, his fate sealed, his future an empty cell, a concrete testament to the darkness he had unleashed upon the world. Section 4. Amanda's trial, a desperate plea. The trial of Amanda Hayes followed a similar trajectory. The courtroom once again transformed into a stage for a tragic drama, the air thick with the ghosts of Laura Ackerson and her 2 young sons, their absence a haunting presence that permeated every aspect of the proceedings. Amanda, her demeanor a study in contrasts, a fragile woman hardened by circumstance, her eyes reflecting a mixture of grief, defiance, and a deep-seated fear, sat at the defense table, her fate now in the hands of a jury tasked with determining the extent of her role in the gruesome crime that had shocked the nation. Her defense team, facing an uphill battle against a mountain of evidence and the specter of her husband's conviction, argued for leniency, portraying Amanda as a victim of Grant's manipulation, a woman trapped in a web of abuse and intimidation, her actions driven by fear rather than malice. They painted a picture of Grant as a master manipulator, a controlling and abusive husband who had warped Amanda's perception of reality, bending her to his will through a combination of charm, threats, and a reign of psychological terror that left her feeling powerless to resist his demands. They argued that Amanda, blinded by love and fear, had been drawn into Grant's web of deceit, her judgment clouded by his influence, her actions a desperate attempt to protect herself and her children from a man she had come to fear. The courtroom dramas, the legal battles, the testimonies that sent chills down the spines of all who heard them, they all pointed to a singular heartbreaking truth. Laura Ackerson, a young woman with dreams, a mother fighting for her children, was gone, her life stolen in a brutal act of violence that shook a community to its core. Laura's story is not just a case file, a collection of evidence, or a headline in a news cycle. It's a stark reminder of the vulnerability of life, the fragility of dreams, the devastating consequences of unchecked rage, and the insidious nature of obsession. It's a story that forces us to confront the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives, the potential for evil to fester in the hearts of those we believe we know. As the dust settled on the trials, as the media circus moved on to its next tragedy, those who knew and loved Laura were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives, their hearts heavy with grief, their minds struggling to comprehend the senselessness of her loss. Her parents, their faces etched with a pain that no parent should ever have to endure, spoke of their daughter's infectious laughter, her kind heart, her unwavering love for her children. Her friends, their voices choked with emotion, shared memories of her infectious energy, her unwavering loyalty, her ability to find joy even in the darkest of times. They spoke of a light extinguished too soon, a void that could never be filled, a silence that echoed through their lives. The wheels of justice, though they often grind slowly, had delivered their verdict. Grant Hayes, the architect of Laura's demise, a man consumed by his own demons, was condemned to spend the rest of his days behind bars, his freedom extinguished, his life a testament to the devastating consequences of unchecked rage and a heart consumed by darkness. Amanda Hayes, her role in the tragedy acknowledged, her complicity undeniable, was also held accountable for her actions, her freedom curtailed, her future forever shadowed by the choices she had made, the path she had chosen to walk alongside her husband, a path that led them both to a place of unimaginable darkness. The guilty verdicts, while offering a sense of closure, a measure of justice served, could not erase the pain, could not bring Laura back, could not fill the void left in the lives of those who loved her most. The justice system, for all its complexities, its imperfections, its attempts to impose order upon chaos, could not undo the damage that had been done, could not mend the shattered hearts, could not silence the whispers of what if that haunted their dreams. The courtroom dramas had ended, the book closed on a chapter of unimaginable pain, but the story continued. The echoes of Laura's laughter, the memory of her love, forever intertwined with the tragedy of her untimely death. The scars of that summer, of the brutal crime that shook a community to its core, would forever remain, a reminder of the fragility of life, the importance of cherishing every moment, and the enduring power of love in the face of unimaginable loss. Despite the guilty verdicts, despite the meticulous work of law enforcement, despite the tireless efforts of prosecutors, a chilling question lingered in the air, a question that haunted the dreams of Laura's loved ones, a question that whispered through the halls of justice. Where were Laura's sons? The boys, innocent victims of a tragedy not of their making, had vanished without a trace, their fate a mystery that deepened with each passing season. Grant Hayes, his lips sealed by a pact of silence, his eyes betraying nothing but a chilling indifference, refused to divulge their whereabouts, his silence a final act of cruelty, a wound that refused to heal. Theories abounded, whispered speculations that offered little comfort, each scenario more horrifying than the last. Had the boys, their young lives cut short, been disposed of alongside their mother, their tiny bodies swallowed by the murky depths of the Texas bayou? Or had they suffered a fate far worse, their innocence stolen, their lives forever altered by the actions of those who should have protected them? The unanswered questions lingered, a heavy weight upon the hearts of those who yearned for closure, for a resolution to a mystery that seemed to defy explanation. The search for the boys continued, a faint glimmer of hope flickering amidst the darkness, fueled by the unwavering belief that somewhere, somehow they might still be alive, waiting to be found, to be reunited with the family that had never stopped searching for them. The story of Laura Ackerson is a tragedy, a stark reminder of the darkness that can touch even the most ordinary of lives. But amidst the grief, the anger, the lingering questions, there is a glimmer of hope, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the enduring power of love to transcend even the darkest of times. Laura's memory lives on, not in the details of her death, but in the hearts of those who loved her. Her laughter still echoes in their memories, her kindness a guiding light, her love a beacon of hope. Her story, though forever intertwined with tragedy, serves as a reminder of the preciousness of life, the importance of cherishing every moment, the unwavering strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable loss. The community, shaken to its core by the horrors that unfolded that summer, rallied around Laura's family, offering support, comfort, and a shared determination to honor her memory by fighting for justice, for awareness, for a world where such tragedies become a distant memory, a dark chapter in human history relegated to the past. The search for Laura's sons continues, a testament to the enduring power of hope, the unwavering belief that even in the darkest of times, light will find a way. And though their fate remains unknown, their absence a constant ache in the hearts of those who love them, their memory serves as a reminder of the innocence lost, the potential unrealized, the urgent need to create a world where such tragedies are no longer possible.